One of the things that I really love about obscure, almost silly examples is that they can be really, really useful for understanding really complicated topics in ways that complicated topics can be really hard to understand when you actually describe them, no matter how well you describe them. So today, I want to tell you about how I've decided to collect worthless Ken Griffey Jr. baseball cards in an attempt to teach you about decision making and how I make decisions and break down problems. We'll see how I do. But first, some comedy. So I got reached out to by somebody on Twitter. I'm not going to share his name. I'm not going to put him on blast. But this was on May 17th, 2024 at 6:51 p.m. He says, "Yo, you got a coaching program, right?" I said, "Correct." He says, "Dope, bro. I messaged you initially because I'm confident I can get you 20 plus high ticket clients on a pay per results basis in 90 days or less, to the point where I'll give you $1,000 of my own money if we can't to compensate for wasting your time. Opposed to discussing? ? I said, "No, thank you." He says, "Curious as to what the turnoff was." So I responded, "I mean, there was never a turn on. I didn't inquire for your services or anything like it. I'm good, man. 2 coaching businesses, do a few million in profit each year. I own but don't operate them. Happy where things are at." He responds, "Fair. Wish you the best, man." And I said, "You too. Have a great weekend." And I thought that was the end of it.
No.
Because, I don't like these dudes are hustling, right? Like, total respect for them. That's fun. Figured that was the end of it. Be polite, cordial. He messages back 3 minutes later, and he says, "I actually do have a question for you. I'm 18, running my first biz. I eventually want to get to a similar point to where you are. Any advice?" So first of all, this has now become hilarious. But I wanted to share what I said to him. Because, value or something or other.
Value.
Oh, yeah. So here's what I said to him. I said, "The only way to get there is to earn it by building a reputation that precedes you based on real work in the real world. Build something meaningful. Make it fucking great. Don't try to get famous on the internet. Make an impact first, then leverage that into online impact many years down the road." Basically, what I was saying to him without saying it is that if you're 18, hiding behind the DMs, trying to sell people coaching on how to build a high-ticket coaching probably isn't where you should be spending your time if you're thinking for the long term. Okay. Just wanted to share that. Oh my God, hilarious. Hold up. Oh, this is so funny. So I didn't notice the second part. So he said, "Thank you, man. Seriously means a lot." And then there was an automated message that came afterwards, which I didn't notice, which says, "Welcome. Welcome message created with coldclose.com." I don't know what coldclose.com is. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Get the paid version, bro. Like,
he was using the free version. I'm on the website.
Yeah. If you're gonna use Cold Close, pay an extra $5.
I feel like we should rename Quick Coach to be like just something like scam people into buying fitness from you.com. Just so people would pay us to remove the branding.
Oh, dear John, I'd like to help you elevate your business. Sidebar, I'd also like for you to give me some advice about how I might elevate your business. Thank you very much.
Isn't that funny? Okay. Back to baseball
You're on your
cards.
way, kid.
Back to baseball code. On your way, kid.
Get Amber a Thurman Tooley 1976 left-handed robot card.
Some sort of obscure. Well, I mean, I'll talk to you like this isn't part of what I was going to talk about today, but resourcefulness is actually a big part of the conversation. Like,
right?
If you have a problem, how good are you at figuring out how to solve that problem? I actually think is it the number one skill that you should have today? Like, maybe. Everything is figure-outable. That's not a word, but I like it.
I think so, John. I'll put that. I'm telling you, in the course of my career, figuring out how to figure it out, has separated me from the pack of peers so much over the course of your career. That's a good subject, man. Is that what we're talking about today?
Well,
Because I don't pay attention to
it could be a part of it. We can dwell on that a little bit at some point in the not so distant future, because I do think that it's a major skill set to develop, and I do think that it played a part here. So, okay, here's my problems. I decided that I wanted to get back into collecting baseball cards. Okay, it was just something got rekindled in me many months ago, and I was like, this could be really fun. This could be like a side hobby, could be something fun to do with Calvin, and I don't know, I feel pulled towards it. Cool. I'm a nerd, I'm a geek, whatever. I don't care what you think about me. This is what I like to do. So, whatever. And so the first thing that I did is I bought a whole bunch of old boxes of 1989 packs and basically opened them until I found all the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards. So that was fun. Called over my best friend, but you can only really do that once. And the problem with buying old boxes is that they can be hard to source, like old boxes of packs. They can be hard to source. You really are only going to find the ones that are like super overproduced sets. And there's not that many of them. They're really fun sets from like the 90s and early 2000s. The boxes can be hard to source and or are expensive, particularly in Canada if we want to get them into Canada. And also, I don't care about the majority of things inside of them. I basically just look for the Griffey and throw away the rest of the packs anyway. Give them away, whatever. So that kind of ran its course. So then I started to buy new packs. And I bought off of Walmart like the ones that were available. And what I found is that new cards, it's basically this glorified casino now, where it's effectively a slot machine. Michael Easter in his book Scarcity Brain talks about the scarcity loop, and in that he talks about basically the most addictive features of a slot machine, but it's built into a lot of the software tools that we use these days. And it's designed into a lot of things because of how addictive it is to our own little monkey brains. And the main tenets of the scarcity loop is that it's randomized. There's a very fast turnover. So, for example, slot machines used to be you pull the thing. Well, now slot machines are you push the button over and over and over again. So the fact that they made the slot machines a faster turnover by making it a button and not a pull actually made them much more addictive. So it's totally random. There's a fast turnover. There is a chance that there is a huge reward on the other end. It doesn't actually matter how good or bad the odds are. What matters is that there's a chance no matter how distant the chance is. So slot machines obviously are a part of this. And actually, the way that they've designed baseball cards are now a glorified slot machine with worse odds than a slot machine. They're unbelievably expensive. The odds that you're going to pull anything that has any real value is basically nothing. And also, I don't care about most of what's inside. So that didn't work. The only other option then is to buy singles. And so singles is the best deal around because most of the things, if you pull something, even if you pull something good in a box or a pack of cards, it's still probably not going to pay for the box or pack of cards. So you could buy singles, and then you get exactly what you want. Well, the problem with singles is that it's no fun. There's no surprise element. You're just buying exactly what you know that you're buying, and then it arrives, and you're like, yeah, this looks like the thing that I thought that it was going to look like. So here's what I did. I was able to find a Facebook group, and it was not actually that easy to find because who would have thought that this type of thing existed? But first I joined like big sports card groups, and I started participating and stuff. And eventually found a Facebook group called Ken Griffey Jr. Sports Cards Universe. There is a Facebook group with over 10,000 members of it, solely dedicated to Ken Griffey Jr. baseball cards. It's my favorite Facebook group on the internet right now. And in that group, people are often selling things. Now, often what they're selling are like the more expensive Ken Griffey Jr. cards, which I don't want. Or the graded ones, like what I have behind me, where if you get a card graded, I want like a binder with junky old 1990s cards that I flip through and that I open up with Calvin and play with.
Mm-hmm. That's what my dad's doing right now with the Thurman Munsons. He has like a list we compiled of like 1,700, and we're going through by each, and just low grade, nothing, just for pure nostalgia.
I still don't know what Thurman Munson is.
It's a player.
Okay. He was a baseball player?
Before your time. Before your time. Yeah.
Okay. Thurman Munson. Very cool. Okay. So I put a post in this group. So I was in this group for like a while, and I would comment or whatever whenever it made sense. But I put a post in this group and said, I'm looking to buy collections of junk wax Griffey codes. Ungraded singles, not duplicates. I'm in Canada, but I'm happy to pay international shipping if necessary. I want to rebuild my lost collection from when I was young. If you have singles or lots you want to sell, please comment or message me. So what I did in that message is I was very specific in what I was asking for. Mm-hmm. I didn't say I'm looking to buy Griffey codes. I didn't say just I'm looking to buy junk walks. I was like, I'm looking to buy exactly these codes that are ungraded and I don't want duplicates. So lesson number 1, be very specific. If you want something, figure out what you want and be very specific so you don't deal with a whole bunch of stuff that is just people not understanding you or not listening, whatever. I like to include a little bit of why, especially in something like this where it's like a nostalgic kind of hobby. It's like, I want to rebuild my lost collection. I don't think that makes much of a difference, but I don't know, it feels good, and I felt like it would have connected with them. So a bunch of people messaged me. There are, 19 comments, not a ton, but a bunch of people messaged me, and, basically like people who have huge collections, mostly code dealers is my guess. And so here's what I did. I now have 5 different people that for the next 10 weeks are going to be sending me 5 Ken Griffey Jr. codes chosen at random in the mail. So that's 250 total codes. But if I just got 250 total codes sent to me, it would be fun once and then not that fun anymore. Because I understand the hedonic treadmill. I understand that no matter how much you enjoy something, the pleasure is going to wear off pretty quickly. And then it just becomes something you do. But if you can put space in between the same experience repeated with space in between that or separating away from that actually regains much of the joy. So if you have the best view of a sunset over and over and over and over again every night because you're staying in this beautiful place overlooking the ocean, that sunset will cease to become something that you appreciate after give or take 5 to 7 days. But if you're staying in that place for 5 days and you enjoy that sunset and then you leave for a month and then you come back, you're going to really love that sunset again. And you can actually do that in infinite amount of times. Like that appeal of that doesn't wear off. So I wanted to recreate that here. So I don't know what's coming. All I know is that starting probably next week, all of them have started to send them, but they're in the US. Starting all of next week, I'm going to start getting in the mail almost every day, if not every day or two, a random package of Ken Griffey Jr. codes, of 5 to 7 Ken Griffey Jr. codes that Calvin and I can now open. And it's like getting a new pack, if you think about it, every single day. Except the difference is now, I know that I'm going to like everything inside of there. It's going to be a surprise when it arrives every single day. It's really cheap. For 250 codes, mailed to me in 50 different packages from the United States, I spent just over $300. From Walmart, buying 1 box of codes now is $80 to $120. I bought 2 boxes from a code shop, one of the only code shops in Toronto. I guess because there's not as many nerds as me anymore who like this stuff. I bought 2 boxes and it was $210 with tax. So for $300, I was able to get 250 codes that I know I'm going to like them all in 50 different packages arriving at my house as a surprise, 5 at a time, almost every day over the course of 10 weeks. And so really what I did there is I tried to break down what are all the elements of this hobby that I really loved. and then recreated them. And so I'll talk to you about kind of my process of doing that, because it's the same general process that I try to figure out how to solve any problem, or I guess design any method of anything that I do. But first, the final element of this is I'm also building a geek flag audience around this. I started an Instagram page that is at Ken Griffey Jr. Junk Wax. And this page, let me open up. What did I name it? It's rebuilding my lost childhood collection, one junk wax Ken Griffey Jr. at a time. There's 47 followers. Like, I don't care how many followers, because part of what's really fun for me, for whatever reason, is sharing whatever I'm doing publicly. That's one of the things that's actually served me very well in my career, is that I just like to share. Perhaps I'm an oversharer in what I do. It's not even the response. I just enjoy it. So I created this page. And of course, everybody who's sending me these cards, I told them I was going to be doing this on the page. And then every day when these cards arrive, there's just the first one that got posted the other day. I think it was yesterday I put it up. Every day when these cards come, I'll reveal them. So I'll have the package, and I'll take out the cards one by one and show them. And my guess is that slowly it will start to build a smallish but dedicated audience of people like me around the world. Because that's what happens when we create content that's really true to us, isn't it? Is we start to attract people like us, which is a really beautiful thing. At the same time, I posted on my Facebook account. Now, to be fair, I have an embedded audience on my Facebook account because I've been posting there for 13 years or whatever it is. But I posted on my Facebook account that this is what I was doing. And I didn't post the account to the Instagram, but just that I was rebuilding my Griffey collection. I got a whole bunch of messages from people like colleagues, people I'm connected to on Facebook, most of which I don't really know that well, some of whom I don't know if I've ever messaged back and forth with them, let alone 2 or 3 times, who said, hey, I used to collect when I was young too. Pretty sure I got some Griffies. I'd love to send them to you. So now I'm building rapport with other people who I'm connected to on Facebook. Because one of the best ways that you can build rapport with people is to have them help you in something. When I was a personal trainer, I remember reading about this. What book was it? Maybe An Influence by Cialdini, I think. But he was talking about how, anyway, what I started to do is I started to ask my clients for advice on things outside of fitness. And so I'd ask my clients advice on being a father, for example. And that's one of the best ways to build rapport with somebody, is to have them help you with something. So long as it's out of your area of expertise that they're hiring you to help them with. You don't ask your client, I'm really struggling with the squat. Can you help me with
that? So you don't inbox people and say, I want to help you build your business, if you give me some advice about how to build a business?
Yeah, that's fun.
The circle is complete.
The circle is complete. And so yeah, I mean, not a lot of people, right? But if there's a few people now that have put in the mail for me Ken Griffey Jr. cards, like, what a cool connection that we have now with those people that would not have otherwise happened. And in building this geek flag audience, I mean, it's just fun for me to do. But also, I've talked about it here before, the other element of this is I bought a part of a company in the space. So I own a part of a company called Mint M1NT, which is innovating on the display and the protection of sports cards. Well, it's not necessary, but me having my own audience in the space and then being an owner of a company in the space is only going to help. So there's a lot of elements to it, right? But it's also just something that personally is fun and fulfilling. I do want to talk about the process of figuring out that that way of getting the code sent to me was how I wanted to kind of get back into this. But anything you guys wanted to talk about before I get into that?
What I liked is when we did the interview with Dr. Jillian. I can't pronounce her last name.
Mandyke.
Thank you. And so she studies happiness, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things she had talked about is how important surprise is.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be tough if you're like trying to build in small surprises, and that's what you've done. And so it's just a neat way that you can introduce surprise into your life on purpose. And you find a way to do that. I just think it's really neat because I think that's a hard thing to kind of comprehend is how do I add surprise to myself, you know? So I just think that's kind of neat.
I think designing, there's so much you can read about this, but there's really only a few main, really important pieces of happiness research, for example. And I don't know about you, but like, I don't think there's really a more important topic to study than understanding happiness, because it's so physiologically ingrained in us, isn't it? It's chemical, as much as we like or don't like to admit that. So yeah, surprise is one of them. Turnover is one of them. And designing into what we do those elements, I think, is a really, really fantastic way to get excited for your day-to-day. But that's up to you to do it. What were you going to say, Ren?
For me, the concept, everything that you just said extends from the baseline of actually knowing what you want, right? Not only just knowing what you want, but being okay with your own authenticity to say, hey, baseball cards are kind of geeky. My geeky sub niche is that I'm only interested in King Griffey cards. That might feel weird to other people, but I love it. So,
and I don't need to explain it.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
It is what it is, and there's probably people like me.
Yeah. So out of that understanding, be able to say, okay, I'm going to go to a place where other people may be like-minded. Maybe they're not. Obviously they are if it's a whole group of people for King Griffey. But because I know what I want, I can actually ask for it specifically. I think so many people don't know what they want. And for a lot of people, what they're focused on is mainly predicated on how they feel they're being perceived by other people. Like they want things because those things create a perception in others that they're a certain type of person. And I think that keeps people in places where they're not really that satisfied. So I love the fact that you knew what you want and you just articulated it clearly, and people like, yeah, we can do, buddy.
So here's how I work backwards. That's a good segue. So here's how I work backwards to figuring that out, because I did not know that was what I wanted when I started. I was just like, there's something about these baseball cards that I just really love watching these videos when they pop up. So then, of course, more videos like that popped up because I watched them more. There's something about this that I really enjoy, and I don't quite get it. Okay. Here's how I kind of went and investigated that. The first is just gathering info, which basically means it's okay to consume stuff on a subject for a while. It's cool. So, I watched videos, and as they popped up in my feed, and then as I clicked on them and watched them, more popped up in my feed, and I started to figure out that I resonated with certain people who made those videos more than others. And I sent a few of them messages. One of them was Brian Pirup. You could find his interview. Let's actually recommend that one afterwards, Amber, if you don't mind grabbing the number at some point, please. Brian Pirup, who owns Mint, the company that I ended up investing into. And I started to love his videos, so I got to know him, right? And then I was like, well, okay, I collected these things when I was young, but I didn't know much about them. So I actually went and I bought a book on the history of baseball cards. And I read it. And it was fascinating. Because, it was the history of it, but also the area that I was collecting. I learned all about it. So I learned all the stuff in the background. Like, for example, this Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck 1989 rookie card. was the first Upper Deck code. The reason that Upper Deck came in and became so major at the time is because they put a hologram on their code. At that point, it was really, really hard to verify whether a code was legitimate or not. There was a lot of fake codes. Upper Deck was the first one that printed holograms in the code, which made them really, really hard to cheat or fake. And they made higher quality codes at the time. If you notice with Upper Deck, they actually designed theirs on purpose to last for 4 years. So it's a diamond. So the first series they did is 1989. That's why it's the first baseline. The second series has the line at the top, second base, third base, and at the bottom. They chose Ken Griffey Jr. as number 1, but when they printed this code, Ken Griffey Jr. had never yet worn a Seattle Mariners jersey. So this is actually a picture when he was wearing the San Bernardino uniform, which was his minor team, and they airbrushed the Seattle Mariners cap on his head. Right? Like, pretty interesting how that all went down. And then there's stuff like players' contracts and how Topps and Bowman basically battled to get contracts with individual players to print their codes. And do you want to know how Bowman got a bunch of the contracts over Topps originally? Topps ended up buying Bowman, but you want to know how Bowman got the contracts?
That's all I want to know, John.
Because the person in charge of that department for Bowman was a man, and the person in charge of that department for Topps was a woman. Because the person in charge for Bowman was a man, he was able to go into the locker room right after the games.
Oh.
That literally is why Bowman had like way more players than Topps did. Anyway, super interesting stuff. So the first stage was just gathering information. Because when you gather information and you start to process that information, you realize that some of it seems to be more interesting than other bits to you personally, right? The next step is just to try stuff. Try stuff not really thinking about what it means, but try stuff. So I was like, I'm going to buy a bunch of boxes of old codes, see how that feels. Open up, get the Griffies. Okay, that was kind of cool, but then I realized that I was sitting there with all these extra boxes after we pulled the Griffies, and what the hell do I do with these things? I don't care about them. They're worthless. So, I gave them to friends, I gave them to kids, like, fine. But clearly there's no staying power in that. So then I started buying the more expensive cards. And I actually ended up getting a pretty valuable one. I started buying the hockey cards, and I got a pretty valuable Connor Bedard. I went and sold that code for like $80, used that towards a couple more expensive baseball boxes. And then I got all those codes, and I was like, I don't like any of this. Right, for all the reasons that I told you first. But in that box that I got that was the more expensive box, there was a throwback card that we pulled. It was like 50 packs, right? There was a throwback card that we pulled that was a Ken Griffey Jr. card. And that's the only card that I cared about and that I really enjoyed getting. So the third step is to gauge after you try stuff, what about that felt good? What about all of the stuff I'm consuming, all of the stuff I'm trying, what are the elements of it, no matter how small, that felt really, really good? Next up, join communities centered around it. Be an observer, take part. Same type of thing. It's just consuming information, right? What do I care about? These are other people who are geekily obsessed in this thing, but perhaps in different ways. What kinds of things do I connect with? What don't I? Even within the Ken Griffey Jr. group, everybody's posting these like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 cards. I don't care about any of them. There's nothing in me that wants to own those. But, those are obviously the ones that are more valuable. So what do you care about, right? Once you join the communities of other geeky people, you can kind of assess that. And then the final step, or actually the second last step, is to design a custom solution for yourself based off of this information that maximizes the elements based off of the stuff that you care about, and ideally, some of this happiness research, to maximize your enjoyment of the thing, especially if it's something that you're going to enjoy, and minimize the cost of it. This is going to cost me a fraction of what it would otherwise cost for many, many, many multiples of enjoyment. And then the final step is, and Amber, I know you're going to like this one, is just to fuck around and find out. I didn't know whether the solution of, like, for these other people that are doing it, like, they're making basically no money. And they're putting together 10 packages with 5 cards each of them in the mail and putting them in the mail to me. And it's like $40 for 10 packages, to ship them to me or whatever. But they're ecstatic to do it. I think they're happy to be selling these things. But also,
there's value in what they're doing. Like, there's emotional value and excitement in participating in the story, but also, okay, let me send this one, and he'll really love this one, and like
there's probably some of that.
A lot of value.
There's probably some of that for them.
That would be the whole reason.
But like, I didn't know whether anybody would be interested in it. Like the message. What was the message that I sent to them? I was like, all right, here's what I want to do. This sounds kind of weird. What was it? Was it this guy? No, that was a different guy that sent me some. Yeah, it was like, if you're up for it, here's what I'd like to do. Right? Every week you send me 5 to 10 at random. I'd start with 10 weeks, so 50 total. I don't need to know what's in advance. That way it'd be something to look for my son and I to look forward to. It'd be like getting a new pack once a week, but always with stuff that I want outside. Of course, that's more work on your end and more cost of shipping. If you're willing to do that, we can look at what it might look like. I had no idea what it would cost to ship. I had no idea whether they'd be interested. But fuck around and find out. And then everybody that I talked to, because the first person went to the post office and figured out what it looked like. So the second person, I was like, yeah, here's about what it costs. And we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that's how I work backwards to figuring out what elements of this I really enjoy, or how I want to kind of make these tight decisions. Does that kind of give you some framework?
Yes. And it takes me right back to the statement that I made about just having clarity on what you want. Like, you just don't get there from not knowing. You don't get there from being less than authentic about what you enjoy. And I think that's the step that most of the humans that I come in contact with find problematic, because I don't know, man, it just seems like so much of humanity is overly concerned with how they might be perceived. So you can never really, let me rephrase that. So it makes it more difficult to actually help someone to their end game, because you got to wrestle the wrestle. You got to wrestle the information out of them, man. Like, so kudos to knowing what's enjoyable for you and sharing that with your lovely, lovely offspring, and then asking for it specifically. Yeah. And you're like a newborn babe. You just here's the other anticipation today, John.
Here's the other part of it that I want to do. I haven't started this yet, but when we went to see Dave Chappelle a couple weeks ago, somebody there was wearing a Seattle Mariners throwback Ken Griffey Jr. jersey, and so I happened to run into him in the hallway, and I was just like, "Yo, that's a sweet jersey," right? And that was it. But what I decided that I wanted to do is, anytime I'm out and about, actually keep a Griffey card on me. And everybody who I see wearing a Griffey shirt or jersey, I'm going to get them to sign the card. And so I'll get one of Griffey's rookie cards, right? And I'll get them to sign the card. And then the day that I meet Griffey, I don't know when that's going to be, but there's going to be a day that I'm going to meet him. And then the day that I meet him, I'll say, hey, I know that you've spent your entire life signing for other people. Every time that I saw somebody over the last 5 years wearing a Ken Griffey Jr. shirt, I got him to sign this card. And we all wanted you to have it. I always thought that'd be so much fun to do.
That's pretty cool. It's a cool story.
There's this, so we always have lots of kids like playing at our house or on our driveway or out front or stuff. Our house is kind of like the gathering point, which is super fun, which we encourage. but there's this fucking ice cream man. And I guess he's figured that out.
You're a mark.
Because we just hear that ice cream truck song, and we hear him coming. And Aunt Allison and I and our neighbors, Dave, Rachel, whoever, just looks at each other and we're just like, just keep on driving, buddy. Just keep on driving by.
Oh, man.
You're not serving happiness.
I didn't know they still
You're
had
serving
ice cream
tears.
trucks. That's a thing? That's still a thing?
All that they do is make kids cry when their parents say no. Or they feed the kids lots of sugar, and then the kids cry and blow up afterwards after the ice cream truck guy has left.
Yeah.
They're not serving joy. They're serving tears. Freaking ice cream.
They want to serve joy. They bring me tacos. We need a taco truck that just...
That's not a bad idea, actually.
Truck.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
Get the parents involved.
I don't know. Anything else you guys want to talk about this? I feel like that's all I wanted to share. What's the episode with Brian?
Yep, so that is episode 184, Making Play Profitable.
Okay, so check out that episode for sure, episode 184. So Brian is one of the biggest influencers in kind of the baseball card world. He's got huge TikTok, particularly. And his story, real quick, is that he actually has an MBA in business, but he owned a travel production company that specialized in making videos, making movies that encourage Chinese travel to the United States. As you can imagine, COVID-19 kind of knocked that business down. So he was left with nothing and forced to kind of figure out his next step. It was nothing like he had savings, but like forced to figure out his next steps. One day his best friend and his business partner, Colin, said, "Hey man, just have fun for a little bit. Right? We've been working hard. Let's just have fun for a little bit. We've been through some shit. You got that Jose Canseco card on your desk. Tell me about it." And he flipped around his phone. And Brian spoke about his Jose Canseco rookie card, 1986 Donruss, I think. And they created a new TikTok account, and they put that video up on TikTok. 40,000 views overnight. So the next day, Colin's like, do it with this Griffey card. Did it with the Griffey card. 100,000 views overnight. Brian has now created one of, if not the most valuable hobbyist enthusiast audiences I've ever seen. And he's done this through a combination of really kind of deep nostalgic content and going and meeting people. He goes and shakes hands, he goes to all the card shops, and he films walking into the card shops, he promotes the card shops, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't ask for money for it. And he was doing that, and then he basically scratched his own itch and built a company around what frustrated him. One of the things he said to me is that when you share what you're secretly embarrassed about yourself, you quickly find out that people really actually dig it. It was a pretty special episode. Would you say 186?
184.
184.
But even if you aren't into baseball cards, his page is still fun to follow. Like when you see people get excited about stuff, it's contagious.
Oh my God, it's great.
So like, yeah.
He'll go to the baseball game. Yeah, he'll go to the baseball game with a box of cards and just hand them out to other people in the stands. And then Topps shared his video and sent him a message and sent him boxes and boxes of cards so that the next time he goes to a game, he has lots of stuff to hand out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right? Like this is the kind of stuff that
happens. There's nothing better than seeing an adult turn into a little kid.
Oh,
like that's one of my absolute favorite videos to watch.
Yeah.
And so I love watching stuff just for that.
It's just joy. It's just it's joy around stuff that many of these people, these adults, including myself, kind of quieted about themselves and are rediscovering, or will be happy when they rediscover. So check that out. Episode 184. Thank you for listening. Always a pleasure. And let your geek flag fly.